What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That is David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. Now, we've got a lot of news to recap. Just put it plain and simple. Since we last spoke, the legal negotiating window is open, and the Miami Dolphins have been busy. As a matter of fact, they have been busy before the legal negotiating window started. Everything legal.
That's how you do it in Miami.
No tampering, nothing illegal. We're keeping it legal over here. But the Dolphins making some big moves, going quote unquote all in. You could say. Last Sunday, coming off my vacation, landing in Miami, looking at the crappy American Airlines Wi-Fi. David's blowing up my phone. Dolphins trade for all-pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Some people are calling it a heist. That is their biggest move of the week so far. But in addition to that, they've also re-signed some guys, made some other additions on offense and defense. We're going to get into all of that as we wrap up the legal negotiating window on Tuesday night as we're recording now. All these deals can become official at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. That's when the new league year starts. Free agency is officially open, and then we start to see these teams announce their signings. But like I said, the Dolphins have been among the busiest teams so far, and we got to start with that Jalen Ramsey news. So like I said, the Dolphins acquiring the all-pro cornerback from Los Angeles in exchange for the hefty, not hefty price, but
hefty bag.
yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. But the trade compensation was a third-round pick, 77th overall. Actually, the pick that they acquired from the New England Patriots in the Devontae Parker trade last year. They sent that pick to Los Angeles, as well as Hunter Long, the 2021 third-round pick, who didn't really play much at all, just ended his Miami tenure with one career catch, oft injured. So by all accounts, a heist for Miami. Now they did readjust Jalen Ramsey's contract, fully guaranteeing the 2023 and 2024 base salaries. They added some signing bonus, kind of, sweeten the pot and whatnot. But that's kind of immaterial. It did free up some cap space, but that's immaterial. The big thing is the Dolphins getting an elite top tier cornerback to pair with Xavier Howard. We know that Byron Jones is going to be released on Wednesday. He's going to be no longer in the team's plans. So they swap out Byron Jones seemingly with Jalen Ramsey. You got a new nice cornerback tandem for Vic Fangio, and the Dolphins are off and running. Now this was a move that surprised me, because if you listened last week and a couple weeks before, we discussed the potential of the Miami Dolphins acquiring Jalen Ramsey, and I was on the record. I'll take the L on that one. I was on the record saying they shouldn't do it, and I was pretty certain that it wasn't going to happen. Now I will say, now just where I defend myself, I wasn't thinking they were going to get Jalen Ramsey for a bag of peanuts and a deck of cards. Exactly. That's not what I thought. But it's interesting seeing how business goes in the NFL, where sometimes on paper what a player's value is, maybe you get for pennies on the dollar or whatever. You trade them for pennies on the dollar because the Rams were clearly in a kind of rebuilding mode. They trade Jalen Ramsey. They get rid of Leonard Floyd. I believe that there's another player that they may have parted ways with. I might be blanking, but they're kind of where the Dolphins were a couple of years back, where they're like, all right, we need to get some cap space. They also got rid of Bobby Wagner. So the Rams are kind of where the Dolphins were a couple of years back, where I want to say not tanking it per se, but they're trying to restock the draft capital, the cap space,
Except they're doing it having been in 2 Super Bowls
exactly
and won one, whereas the Dolphins have made the playoffs twice in the last 20-some years.
Exactly. So yeah, that is a very clear distinction. But nonetheless, the Rams in a position where they're trying to offload contracts. Maybe the offering price or the trade compensation for Jalen Ramsey wasn't as high as it normally would have been, given the fact that teams trading for Ramsey. We're gonna have to, sweeten the pot with restructuring his contract, making sure that he was definitely going to get some money in the next couple of years. The Dolphins were definitely and obviously willing to do that. They did that. And now you add another premier player to what we will all say is a talented defense, but a defense that underperformed. So, that move surprised me. I think that, hey, when you talk about being all in, that's what it looks like the Dolphins are. I think that obviously there's still a couple other moves to be made. They did get David Long Jr., who looks like he's going to be like a middle linebacker for them, maybe next to Jerome Baker in that defense. They still maybe need to add a safety, add some depth in other spots. But on paper, the defense looks legit. And if you got a guy like Vic Fangio who's calling the shots, Jalen Ramsey has played in a similar defense, so it's not like there's going to be any learning curve or much of a learning curve. Hey, that's a legit move right there. That's a legit move for the Dolphins. What was your reaction?
Yeah, it was a shock they were able to get treasure for trash. You know, I got action figures over here that are worth more than what the Dolphins sent over there. Like that Professor Zoom action figure. Shoo. That was it was a the only question was once obviously if the Rams are going to accept that, the only question is how do you move the money around? And Jalen Ramsey clearly, like 2 seconds, actually it was 2 minutes after Ian Rappaport, breaks his news. Hey, this look like this is happening. He tweets that video.
So I think it's a Lil Yachty.
Right, comes out there and he's like,
yeah,
"This
he's
is my
hype.
current
He's
mood."
hype.
You're like, "Oh, I guess this is getting done."
Yeah.
Right. So you there's not obviously, he was willing to, for the money to be restructured and
it seemed like he really wanted to come here as well. He said
right.
he was like, I prayed for this. I think that speaks a lot because we've seen that in the past couple of years with Tyreek Hill. It was the Jets to the Dolphins. Now, obviously, there's the allure of South Florida. Everyone wants to be in Miami, but hey, these guys still want to win too. They want to
Right.
enjoy where they're living, but they also want to win there. So for him to say, I was really pushing my agent to make this happen, that says a lot about where the Dolphins are and the perception of the Dolphins around the league.
Right. And it's obvious he thinks he thinks what everybody else thinks. It's like, okay, now we got, now he's thinking, okay, there's a guy on the other side who's pretty darn good too. Of course, he doesn't think that Xavier Towers is better than him, but he thinks he's pretty good too. So, oh wow, this is this is great. I'm going to get some action, and he's going to get the balls thrown his way, and he's going to have a chance to make plays, make big plays, make game-changing plays, and yeah, this play isn't perfect for him, and so yeah, this is as things are all the moves on the defense look really again, the pieces look good and they should fit together. Let's see if they do. Mr. Long has a long history of being Mr. Short when it comes to availability.
That's true. Yep.
That's
missed 5 games in 20 this past season, and his miss has been nicked up. Even his coach was like, "Hey, these soft tissue injuries, I don't know where they're coming from. We got to do something." So,
right.
Maybe that's why the reason why they got him for 2 years, $11 million. Because a lot of people were saying he was one of the better linebackers and what was a deep class. So maybe that's
right. But obviously, the Dolphins are hoping they got the bargain.
Yeah.
And if he's healthy, they get a bargain. If he's not healthy, well, they didn't.
Yeah.
And nobody's a bargain if they're not healthy.
Yes, for sure.
And so that's a pretty good move. That's a pretty good move. When you're in the Dolphins position also with the cap, you can move money around a lot, but you need to get a bargain. And
not for sure.
They got one there. I like that. I like that move. And yeah, so it all looks good. For the as then this defense again, it's a should. They should really be really good. They should be a top tier defense that can play complementary football with that offense.
Yeah.
Um, which didn't always happen last year. Uh Now let's see if it happens. I mean, it's hard when you follow this franchise, for a while. You know, even as things look like they're coming together, they are actually coming apart when you don't realize it until later. Um, or something always seems to be in the process of bringing them apart. But no, this is Dolphin fans should be very happy. Uh, I've hey, I'm already saying you can't have too many good corners. Now you got two very good to great corners.
Yeah.
So that in this current NFL puts you very ahead of the game and gives you a lot of things you can do, options defensively for what you can do strategically. Whether you like to blitz, whether you don't like to blitz, whatever thing you like to style defense you like to play, you're in good stead.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good point about that last point, that you can do a lot of different things, because over their careers, Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey have been like kind of like very physical press corner type guys. But this is a defense where they're going to be playing more zone and whatnot. But like you said, there might be some situations where you do want to blitz. Vic Fangio said, "Hey, I'm going to blitz when I want. I'm not going to blitz when I don't want to." So you have the option of doing a lot of different things because you have players with those types of skill sets. So they're really, really trying to shape out this defense and make sure that they don't, have a repeat of what happened last season when they underperformed. Now, the moves weren't limited to the defensive side, though. On Tuesday, as a matter of fact, the Dolphins retained their top two leading rushers from the 2022 season, reaching agreements on 2-year deals with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. This was a move that a lot of people expected. Chris Greer said at the combine that, hey, there's a very good chance we could run it back with our backfield, and the Dolphins seem like they're doing that. They not only brought back Mostert and Wilson, but they signed Salvon Ahmed to a 1-year deal. He was a restricted free agent, but he's back in Miami. But I think maybe probably the biggest move so far is actually the Dolphins signing a backup. That backup being former Jets quarterback Mike White, a local kid, South Florida native, Pembroke Pines native, went to Davie University School, started a couple of years at South Florida before transferring to Western Kentucky. Mike McDaniel said the Dolphins were going to be in search of a backup to compete with Skylar Thompson. Mike White spent the past 2 seasons, or he started about 8 games the past 2 seasons with the Jets. Had some really bright moments, but some low moments at all. Was it because of him? Was it because of the dysfunction of the Jets? A lot of people are discussing that. It's a 2-year deal, but more or less, it's essentially a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. I'm interested to see whether Mike McDaniel deems this an actual competition with Skylar Thompson, because he did speak very highly of the 7th round pick from last year. But the way I feel about this move is, I don't know if I'll say this. There were a lot of different backup quarterbacks available that the Dolphins could have, targeted and maybe shelled out a little bit more money for. I know Andy Dalton, Taylor Heineke, I believe Marcus Mariota, like all those guys are on the market, and I believe Andy Dalton and Taylor Heineke have signed with teams so far. But I'm kind of the mindset of I know a lot of people are saying why did we sign this guy? Because the numbers on paper aren't that great. Again, 8 games, 7 starts, 1-3 record in his 4 starts last season. He completed 58.9% of his passes for 1,192 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 75.7 quarterback rating. I think that among the AFC quarterbacks with the lowest passer ratings, it was Skylar Thompson, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, and Mike White. So it's not great on paper, but you have a situation where you have a guy who knows the system, because the Jets and the Dolphins run a very similar Shanahan style offense. You have a guy who wanted to be here. He doesn't cost a ton, so you're able to kind of allocate resources to other places. But I'm kind of in the mindset of was there anybody else that the Dolphins could have targeted to be a backup that really would change their fortunes if Tua was to get hurt? Now, I know a lot of people were linking them to Jimmy Garoppolo before the free agency started. he signed a big deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's getting about $20 million per year. Dolphins were not going to give $20 million out to a backup. Baker Mayfield was another name that has been linked, and it seems like he's going to be pursued for a starting job. So I mean, again, Gardner Minshew, Taylor Heineke, like I don't think there's anybody who, I mean, I'll put it this way: if the Dolphins are starting or not starting Tua Tagovailoa in significant games in 2022, or 2023, I should say, they're probably screwed regardless, unless Tom Brady comes out of nowhere. And I'm not throwing that out there. I'm just saying, unless maybe they get him out of retirement.
Don't talk to that, man.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Okay, no. You the one's gonna have to write that story. You the one's gonna have to write the story. You have to take the emails. You're the one that's gonna have to pay for that, right?
I'll take it, and I'll take it.
You gotta pay for that. I am not in this. I have done my time on that.
And I'll take it. I'm just saying.
Out your mind.
I'm just saying.
I'm mentioning that name.
I'm just saying, if Tua gets hurt, my point is, if Tua gets hurt and somebody not named Tua Tagovailoa starting significant, important games for the Dolphins in 2023, Dolphins are not going to get to where they want to be. So again, when you're a backup, you're just looking. When you look at a backup quarterback, you're looking at somebody who you just want to keep you afloat, potentially allow you to steal a game or two. And again, while the record wasn't that great for Mike White, if you really look at his body of work, he was injured a bit, kind of played through injury. He put the Jets in positions to be competitive and be in games. And I'll say this, can he be better than Teddy Bridgewater was this past season? Can he be better than Skylar Thompson was this past season? When you look at the talent that the Dolphins are going to have around him, when you look at the defense that's going to be backing him, if he were to have to play, I think he can. I mean, it's a pretty low bar. I mean, honestly, when you look at the backup quarterback play that they got from Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson, it's a pretty low bar to clear it. And they were still in a lot of those games. So again, he comes with his warts, but I mean, he's a backup. I don't know why we're looking like people are like, oh, he stinks, he's this, he's that. And I'm like, he's a backup. You're not gonna. I mean, how much value are you gonna get from a backup? I mean, there's not a lot of backups around the league where you can throw them into the starting spot and a team is very, very is confident that they're gonna be fine or they're gonna keep the boat afloat. Could they have targeted another guy? Yes, but I just don't. I don't think it's that big of a deal that they got Mike White of all the backups available.
Okay. I mean, yeah. The world's not full of Earl Morals and Don Strocks, or even
Nick Foles,
but and I'm not a big guy on quarterback records because so much goes into it. It's a team game, for Pete's sake. It's a team game, folks. Pitcher records in baseball are overrated. So how the hell could we sit here and talk about quarterback records when unless you're Sammy Ball was the last one we could do that with, because the man played offense, defense, and he punted. That's it. I'm not crazy about the Mike White thing.
I'll say this: who would you have liked the Dolphins to get?
Honestly, if Taylor Heineke was an option, now maybe he wasn't.
Maybe
he would have cost too much, because he had some really good performances for Washington.
You're right. I mean, he had them in a playoff game. He played well in a playoff game a couple of years back. You're right.
I mean, Mike White versus Taylor Heineke.
Okay, so
that's Taylor Heineke wins that.
Heineke signed a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million. Obviously, a lot of that might be incentive laden.
Yeah, but the Dolphins wasn't getting that money.
But the Dolphins got Mike White for 2 years for up to $16 million, and it's really 2 years worth $8 million. So
he's okay, right?
I don't think the Dolphins were going to give out that money.
Right. He's not going to be on the mark. He's going to be too much for the Dolphins. But and again, who knows? Did they pursue him, and could they have gotten him for a little less, being as how the Dolphins look like a pretty good team, look like you might you might be able to get yourself a little conference championship ring, or
But
there.
again, you have a guy in Mike White who they've seen the past 2 years or so because he's been in the division. He knows the offense, so there's not going to be like, oh, you gotta study the whole playbook during OTAs and training camp. He goes right in there. He knows everything. He just has to kind of switch the terminology. Again, it's a very low bar that he has to clear from last year's backup play, and in a system with better talent, better coaching, better teammates, I think that I don't think if he has to start 4 games for the Dolphins, I don't think it'll be 1-3 with completing less than 60% of his passes. I think he'll be a little bit better throwing a Tyreek Hill and throwing a Jalen Waddle, handing the ball off to Raheem Mostert and whatnot, as compared to the situation he had in New York. Could they have targeted somebody else? Yeah, but I don't think that I don't think that's going to make or break, their
Also, I don't think the
championship
Jets.
aspirations.
I don't think the Jets were. I mean, the Jets were bad offensively.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily the fault of. I mean,
Yeah,
their
you're
running
right.
backs before they got injured.
You're right. Because they do have some talent there.
Right.
They do have some talent there.
So,
but the Dolphins are obviously a better situation for a
right.
backup
The Dolphins are a
quarterback.
better situation than the Jets.
Yeah.
Again, not crazy about it. So we're basically in the okay. The Dolphins are basically saying, we expect Tua to play 16 games of 17 games at least. So
That's the hope.
Yeah, they're hoping. And if he doesn't, well, maybe that defense can win him a few games. You beefed up your defense, so maybe they can, get you a few games, return an interception,
Yeah.
Hey, get you some short fields and all that good stuff, and you can survive on that until Tua returns from his annual injury. So,
yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, Tua is healthy, playing all 17 games. The Dolphins would hope that's the case. I mean, for goodness sake, he's learning jujitsu and whatnot during the offseason so he can learn how to fall, so he can prevent these injuries. But in a perfect world, he would play these games. But,
is that the alternate Earth where like the Dolphins beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship game that year and then beat the 85 Bears in the Super Bowl in the rematch? And Dan Marino has a ring.
I don't know what that is, but like I said,
that you might as well be talking about that. See, look at Tua's history, and talking about him playing 17 games. That's
we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it yet, but again, that's what the Dolphins hope for. I'm not saying it is going to happen.
12. Did he play 12 in Alabama?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I think maybe his sophomore year.
Okay,
his sophomore year. But
we're getting a little bit in the Sam Bowie area here, where it's like, dude, he didn't play a full college season. How the hell can you expect him to play a full pro season?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen it yet, but if anything, for the Dolphins and Mike White, this is a happy homecoming. He posted a cool photo on his Instagram story of him kind of tailgating. He must have been like 4 years old or 5 years old. He was out tailgating with a Dolphins shirt on, so I know he's excited to.
So he's growing up with pain.
Hey, maybe he becomes charged, to play for his team, for his hometown team. Who knows?
He was perfect for the Jets. He's growing up with that pain.
Yeah, but regardless, Dolphins got a potential backup quarterback. Again, we'll see what happens with him and Skylar Thompson as free agency really opens up Wednesday afternoon, and the Dolphins keep on trying to add to their roster. All right, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back on the side of things, we're going to discuss what's next for the Dolphins. I mean, they've already made a couple signings, brought back a couple guys. Who should they target? What position should they target next? And just overall, what is the outlook for the Dolphins after some big signings? We're going to take a short break, but stay locked with us and we'll be back soon. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast, talking all things Dolphins with David Neal. Now, in the first half, we discussed some of the Dolphins' bigger moves of the first couple of days of the legal negotiating window as we transition to the start of the new league year, the start of free agency where these deals become official. We talked about the Dolphins trade for Jalen Ramsey, agreeing to terms with Tennessee Titans linebacker David Long, as well as signing Mike White, the former Jets quarterback, who looks like he's going to be Tua Tagovailoa's backup in 2023. The Dolphins aren't done with their moves. I mean, they still got a good bit of money to keep on adding to the roster. They've already added quarterback, brought back a trio of running backs, added cornerback, middle linebacker, but they still got some needs. I mean, they traded away Hunter Long. Mike Gesicki's not expected to return, so they still got some needs at tight end, offensive line, maybe a safety. We talked about that. I think one of the maybe glaring lack of moves so far is offensive line. I know you specifically said the Dolphins need to get a right tackle to protect Tua so we can play 17 games, but to date they have not done so. Couple offensive tackles, specifically right tackles, are off the board. And they've got some big money, some $15-20 million deals. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to be in on that, but it will be interesting to see if they target an offensive tackle, because Chris Grier has spoken highly of Austin Jackson, who only played in 2 games last year because of injuries. The former first-round pick hasn't developed like the team would have hoped, but Grier is optimistic that he will develop as they expected, as well as Liam Eichenberg. Maybe they target an offensive guard to compete with him. It's interesting. Again, they've seemingly attacked some of their biggest needs very aggressively in the opening days of, I guess, this starter free agency, whatever you want to call it. Again, with getting a cornerback, I mean, we talked about how that was probably going to be a significant need. They got one of the best cornerbacks. I mean, probably the best cornerback available in terms of trades and free agency. They get a serviceable to potentially very good linebacker, although oft injured, in David Long. Now you have a spot where, you have the money to, again, address multiple positions and get legitimate starters. I'm curious, like, where do they go? I mean, do they target a safety? I know Jordan Poyer from the Bills was a guy who has been linked to them. I mean, he's pretty much said, hey, I wouldn't mind coming to Miami. Do they maybe get him and really just like round out that defense, or do you think maybe it's time for them to really focus on the offense? Because so far it seemed like they're really hell-bent on keeping that continuity with the offense. And then on defense is where they're making the changes. It's kind of like the opposite of last offseason. If you're the Dolphins, where do you go next?
If I can't get the right tackle situation handled in free agency or get handled soon, maybe you do go for the, go back to the defense, shore up the safety spot, like make a good defense, make a potentially very good defense into a potentially great defense. Maybe you want to do that. I don't think there's a downside to that. Yes, it's an offensive league these days. You're gonna have to put up points,
but there's some quarterbacks you gotta stop too.
But yeah, you get exactly. And that the funny thing is, whatever. It's funny that whenever you have the flip side, if it's a deep, like you get into a shootout, it's actually going to be the first defense that makes the play that decides it. If you get into one of these grind games, 10-7 or whatever, it's whatever offense makes the big play that decides the game. So, you have a league now where, teams are deferring because they're so confident that they can score at the end of the half and then score at the start of the second half and, get, flip the scoreboard on you.
Yeah.
And so in that situation where, the way the game is played, the way the game is officiated, everything, maybe it's not a bad deal. Maybe it's not a bad move to try to create a great defense, a top end defense. And because heaven knows that offense still gets you through, usually.
If Tua is healthy, it gets you.
If Tua is healthy, it gets you through.
Yeah.
And we've had one of the rare Super Bowls, I think maybe the first one, where like the number one offense plays the number one defense and the number one offense wins the game.
Yeah.
But and we're not talking like, back in the 70s. We're talking recently, so relatively recently, Seattle, Denver, okay, Oakland, Tampa Bay's been a little bit ago, but Seattle, Denver wasn't that long ago, and we saw what happened there. That usually the defense wins that battle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I still would say you look for the offensive line first, and if you don't think you can do it and do it at a value, be a value shopper. Always be a value shopper.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're cheap, but you always look for value. Even if you're dropping a lot of money, you gotta look for value.
Correct.
But if you can't find value on the offensive line, then I'll say, okay, shift gears. Let's get that defense going. And so Josh Allen's not putting up 30, 40 points on you. And you have more games like the first one that they played against the Bills.
Yeah.
Number of points, not necessarily number of plays, because trust me, they run that many plays on you.
Yeah, it's gonna be
9 times out of 10, they're gonna be putting up some points.
Yeah.
But you have more games like that. And like I say, that can get you through if or when Tua gets injured, pulls his, turns a giblet or something, I don't know, and he's out for like 2 games, so, and maybe a playoff game. So yeah, I think that's what you do.
Yeah, I have an opinion on what I think the Dolphins should do and what I think they will do, just based off comments, prior actions, and whatnot. I think that right now, if I had to rank the remaining needs, I would say offensive tackle, right tackle specifically, safety, tight end. Now Durham Smythe is going to return. They really don't have any depth at tight end, but this is an offense that is like predicated on getting the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, which is why I'll say, I know there were some kind of rumors and the sourcing that said that the Dolphins were kind of peeking and looking around on, Dalvin Cook and potentially Derrick Henry and whatnot. While those would have been like crazy moves to like already add to what has been a potent offense, I think it would kind of be like a misallocation or a poor allocation of resources, because this defense, like I remember saying it so many times during the year, and I'm like, any Dolphins play that is not a target to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle feels like a wasted play. So it's like, yeah, like would Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook be ridiculous in this offense? Of course, but it's almost like, are you really getting like you talk about the value? Like, are you really getting the value in the money that you have to give up for their role in this offense? But going back to my original point, I'd say in terms of need, it's offensive tackle. Because I think that when Armstead was in that lineup, I think that they have 3 legitimate starters, and Teron Armstead, Connor Williams, and Robert Hunt at right guard. And I think that for the most part, when Teron Armstead was in there, it was a pretty good offensive line. I'm not gonna say it was great. They did have their ups and downs, but I think it was serviceable. I'll say that, serviceable to good. Obviously, right tackle was kind of a revolving door with a lot of the injuries that they had there. But again, with those injuries and whatnot, they were still, like, when Tua was in the lineup, one of the, if not the most efficient offense in the league. So I'll still say offensive tackle there, just to kind of shore that position and make sure that, like, Tua, like you said, Tua is really healthy and secure in the pocket. Number 2, I'll say safety, because I think that, especially with, like you said, with getting Jalen Ramsey, you have so much versatility. You have so many things that you can do with, that skill set of that duo of Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard. While I think that getting a safety is important, I think that they can make it do with what they have right now, or target guys in the draft to kind of add to that depth. I think that I think that a big question is what happens, or how is Brandon Jones after tearing his ACL coming back. They have Trill Williams, who might or may not be making a little pivot to safety, or might get some snaps at safety when he comes back from his ACL. So you have guys coming off injuries, but between Verone McKinley, who made some plays as an undrafted rookie last year, I think that you have guys where, like, I don't want to say you just kind of plug them in and you'll be fine. But I guess I am saying that. I think that with the trio, the trio of guys you have in the secondary between Ramsey, Xavier Howard, and Javon Holland. I mean, you do have some guys where you can kind of mix and match that second safety spot, and it's not like I don't think it's going to be like a glaring weakness. I don't think it's going to be much of a weakness at all. After that, I think you're really looking at just kind of filling out the depth. At tight end, do you like is tight end, how much of a tight end position is a priority? Because we saw how Mike Gesicki's inability to block kind of impacted his snaps. Durham Smythe really kind of being that inline guy, but not a guy that got a lot of targets. I think that they could get a serviceable tight end at a good value to kind of plug in there and to kind of fill both of those roles as a guy who can block and is proficient in the passing game. But again, with the offense that you're running, like how important is that, that tight end position in terms of passing? Maybe you need somebody to be a legitimate blocker to kind of help with some of the run stuff that you're doing. But it's like, do you really need to go out and do you need to target a Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys? So that'd be a great move, because he's probably the best tight end available in terms of blocking and catching. But it's like, for the money that it's going to be worth, do you really need that? So again, I'd like to see them get, an offensive tackle. If they can get a guy who they think is a clear-cut starter, I think that'd be great. However, judging off Chris Greer's comments, some of Mike McDaniel's comments, I'm not sure if they're going to do that. They really feel strongly that, they can get Austin Jackson to play to his first round potential. They feel that Liam Eichenberg was playing really good ball before he got hurt in the middle of last year. So those comments don't lead me to believe that, they're going to get bona fide starters to, overtake Austin Jackson or Liam Eichenberg. You might have a situation where they resign Brandon Shell, they resign Kendall Lamb or Eric Fisher, one of those veteran guys that was kind of a depth beast but could step in and start. You might see that. And I think that we could see, them continue to attack the defensive side of the ball and add guys. Because the thing about the offense is that for the most part, it's in place. Like last offseason, they made a ton of signings on offense to get the guys that fit Mike McDaniel's offense. So this year, they need to get the guys to fit Vic Fangio's defense so they can really get this thing going. Because they have the talent there, but they need to make a couple of tweaks and get Vic Fangio guys. So while I think that they should target a starting right tackle, I'm not sure if they will, just based off what they view is their priority. I could be wrong, but just the way that they've spoken about it, the way that they've kind of operated these first couple of days, it leads me to believe they really might not bring in legitimate competition or a legit starter at that spot. They might, that on the offensive line, they might look to the defensive side. And whether right or wrong, I think that's where their priorities lie right now.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's not necessarily the worst move. And if you don't see what you want don't buy. It's the principles of good shopping don't change. Whether you're talking, players, free agents, cars or groceries. If you don't buy something you don't want just because it's on sale, you always look for value, and don't overpay for something, just because you think, you desperately need it. If you need it, there's probably another way to get it done at a better price. So, I think the Dolphins should take that approach. And if you don't see what you want on the offensive line, if you don't see somebody you like at right tackle, okay, go with Austin Jackson. I mean, I gotta believe that there's other options, but I could be wrong. And then, of course, maybe there are better options, but there just aren't better options in their eyes.
Yeah.
So,
beauty's in the eye of the beholder, they say.
Yeah.
So,
and
what might be a fit for the fans or for us might not be a fit for Chris
for them,
especially when we're talking money.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and they might actually be right. But I see that, because GMs do tend to make better GMs and coaches do tend to make better GMs and coaches than fans do. Fans tend to make good fans.
I don't know. I see. I seen.
Media people make good media people.
I've seen a lot of people playing GM on Twitter. They got some. I don't know. We might have to put them in the front office. They might have some good ideas. I'm just kidding, but nah, yo. So we'll see. I mean, the Dolphins again. They've aggressively attacked a lot of needs early on. I mean, Chris Greer. He said we're gonna have some money to spend. They made some money. They made some money up here, and they're spending it right now. So there's a lot of excitement with Dolphins fans. They making it rain. You know, they say Stephen Ross, he's not afraid to cut a check. And
yeah,
they've been cutting some checks these past couple of days. So we'll see what they do.
They made it where they feel like it came out of a briefcase.
I know they just they back in the brick truck. That's what they're doing.
Is it a pillowcase?
Whatever it is in a duffel bag, they bringing the money somewhere, and these players are taking it. But definitely the Dolphins definitely making some aggressive moves lately. I mean, really the past year, whether it's getting Tyreek Hill, getting Bradley Chubb, now getting Jalen Ramsey, now they top it off with what we think are some nice value additions across the roster. We'll see what they do the next couple of days. Again, go ahead.
And to but this is the Dolphins' history. Look, even under Stephen Ross.
I don't know like this though. I don't know this. I mean,
no, they did this under Stephen Ross. Wayne Hasenga. They went after if they didn't sit back all those years and like not target guys and not not
this
try to
different.
go after
this feels
them.
different though. This feels different.
And no, it does feel different
because there's a level of competency and like a legit level of talent with this team.
There it is. It's not whether they've been willing to spend the money or not. It's been how it's still work hard or work smart. Spend or spend smart, and that's the difference.
Yeah,
is I mean, they went out and they got Mike Wallace, Brandon Marshall,
Brent Grimes, and
they listened to the doctors and chose Dante Culpepper over Drew Brees. But either one, they were willing to pay the money. They were willing to go after it, and they chose the wrong one. It didn't work out, but they were willing to go for it. I mean, Bill Parcells didn't come cheap. It was whatever. It's historically what do they think it takes? What does the football trust? What does the football? What do the football minds think it takes? And the owner's been willing to pay, and the owner's been willing to say, okay, let's do it. But now they're actually seem to be getting it right. They got it right with Tyreek Hill. It looks sure as heck looks like it. I mean, they got it right with Jalen Waddle. They just needed, they needed somebody else to get, a system that,
really brought the best out of that skill set.
His skills, right, worked best in, and they got that. They got the right coach. Who brought in that system, and then he blossomed, and especially when you put Tyreek Hill on the other side, and now, you got some combustibility, and it works with what Tua does best. So, yeah, this is spending smart. This is putting everything together. It's not that they haven't been willing to do it. It's that, as you said, there's a level of competency. They're doing it properly. They are. It seems to me they're bringing in pieces that fit what their coaches do, or bringing in a coach that fits what the players who are here, brings in a system that fits what the players are here do. So, yeah, and now let's see how it all fits together, because it looks like it should.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just feels different. I mean, you got people talking Super Bowl. I mean, hey, you gotta win a playoff game first before that. But you got people talking about AFC contention, legitimate Super Bowl contention. Like that's not something that you've heard around South Florida with the Miami Dolphins for some time.
And it's real. It is real.
Yeah, it feels legit.
It's real. And also, for a long time we didn't hear it because we had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick up there, and you knew you weren't getting past them unless one of them got taken out, like one of them did that one year. So, but now good as Josh Allen
The
is,
balance of power is shifting. I mean, they lost
the
Tremaine
Bills look,
Edmonds.
yeah,
I mean, the Dolphins played them very hard 3 times, including without Tua. You add Jalen
right.
Ramsey, you add David Long, you lose a key defender on the Bills. If you can get Tua healthy and plan to that level that he played in October and November, it just feels a little bit different. But again, the Dolphins have won the offseason many a times, only to fall short when the
In the regular
games
season.
really
And what's going to be interesting also is see what happens with the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on AR-12 watch. We got to see
Yeah,
what's going on
that's
there.
that's going to be real interesting because that defense is the truth, but that offense, that offense is a big lie, and
Yeah, I mean,
so
it could get serious if they
it
get in.
yeah
I mean,
it's it,
they bringing his crew over to New York, so I mean,
right
they
that
might tell you something. They
right
might tell you something.
exactly,
I
and
think
it's not going to be telling them something good.
no, we'll
um,
see. We'll see. I mean, the AFC East
so
could be that could be serious. I mean,
right,
that's going
suddenly
to be
that
prime time, nighttime games every week in the
right,
AFC East if Aaron Rodgers
and
comes over here.
that becomes becomes very tough. Becomes no gimmies, and yeah, so you know, and suddenly the Patriots are sitting there going,
Yeah, I don't even know what they're
"Oh
doing.
man."
I don't know what they're
um,
doing.
so that this all looks good for the Dolphins. I think they've made very good moves. Resigning, I really did like the resigning of the running backs because I like Mostert and Wilson.
They're not flashy. They're not the big name guys, but they just get it done.
They,
Like
they get it done, and
yeah,
they're fat, they're fast, they're good size,
they run
good, very
hard.
good speed. Yeah,
Yeah,
run hard, and they make runs that get you going as I mean, you get going as a fan. How can you not get going as a player?
yeah,
You're like, ooh, whereas you somebody hits the hole, and you somebody bounces off, and you keeps going, or you outspeed somebody the edge, and you break off 9 yards, 10 yards, you know, and you know, I I like what I see out of them. So and again, they know the system. There's no adjustments and everything.
yep.
Let's move forward. No, that I think that was good. Instead of are Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry better empirically? Yeah,
In a vacuum,
like
yes, but in this system,
in this
what
system,
they're asked to do, like where are you getting the most value? I think
again,
2-year
value.
deals, couple
Right,
$1 million. I think you're
right,
gonna get a lot of value out of those guys in year 2 of this
right,
system. So the
right.
Dolphins, they're making what seems like all the right moves on the paper. They're definitely putting a squad together, and it's gonna
So
be interesting to see what they do when free agency officially opens 4 p.m. Wednesday. They can really announce these moves, and this is where it's really gonna get going. So all is good in South Florida and this for the second straight offseason this year.
this
They're
is yeah, this is
making a lot of big moves and moves
so
that make sense. Everyone's loving what the Dolphins are doing. So we'll see what they have in store the rest of the week. That brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys as always for tuning in. As always, subscribe to Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment. Subscribe to the Miami Herald. We've been posting stories all day as the moves have been coming. Continue to check out our blog. That's Barry and I updating it throughout the day with not only moves that are happening across or with the Dolphins, but across the NFL, whether it be with Aaron Rodgers potentially coming to the Jets, but other moves that may be impacting the Dolphins. Definitely just continue to keep that up on your laptop, your phone, and check it out. We'll be back next week to recap, the full week of free agency, the moves the
again.
Dolphins are making. Again, all the moves that the
Yeah,
Dolphins are
man,
making.
dude, it's spring break, man.
I mean,
High school
I
spring break.
was about to say I
I
ain't
got
been
a
in
kid,
school. I ain't
man.
been in school in a minute. So I don't know what spring break is,
I
man. We
got a
got to
kid,
work.
okay? Sorry, I ain't been in school for longer than you.
We got to work around here.
You oh, please.
But we'll be back next week to recap another week of Dolphins football and moves and free agency. You guys enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye.